Derpy got me to thinking, if the first Night's King was the 13th commander of the Night's Watch, why was there a wall or a Night's Watch before it was needed? So I got to Googling a couple historical points. I reread just a few things and put together what I know from our real world history, so I'm probably wrong and this is probably all just nonsense. But let me be perfectly clear that if anyone else has come up with this theory before, I do not know of it and I do not care. This was fun for me and I hope it will be for you. We have all heard the theories that the wall was made to keep the White Walkers out of the South, that it was made to keep the wildlings out, and that it was part of a pact. Legend says that the wall was built by Bran the Builder, who was a Stark, around the end of the Long Night. He had the help of the giants and the children of the forest. This would explain why the wall has magic in it. A wall of ice 300 miles long, 300 feet wide, and 700 feet tall would not be able to stand. Because science. It needs magic to be possible. If any of that is true, why are the giants and the children of the forest still on the north side of the wall? What if all of it is wrong? What if the wall was actually built by the White Walkers, the giants, and the children of the forest, and all of the original natives? So bear with me on this. We know Game of Thrones has taken a lot from actual history. We also know that man has a tendency to make history look good in their favor when they are the winner. So why couldn't the history of the wall and the wars be skewed to favor man? I'm not saying I know all of the tiny little details about how this could be possible, because I absolutely do not. But let's just do a tiny little bit of fictional historical digging. So the first men came over and started getting rid of all the natives. The native creatures were losing badly. The children of the forest, the giants, and all that they thought were weird were nearly all wiped out. Why wouldn't the White Walkers build a wall to help protect everyone from the threat? At some point, maybe during its construction, man made the Horn of Winter to bring down the wall. It is said that this is the only thing that can destroy it. That it can destroy the wall, I do think is correct. If man had built the wall, I don't think that they would have made something to bring down their own defenses and then lose it. But usually something this important is not lost in legend. So if the White Walkers built the wall, I think that man felt the need to bring it down because people just don't like to have that threat looming. Kind of like Robert needing to kill every last Targaryen ever. As long as the natives were there, they could be gathering up forces and plotting to rid their lands of people. So man goes up to the wall and blows the horn. Maybe not all, because the magic there is strong, but at least portions of the wall come down. The creatures on the wall would retreat if their biggest and best defense didn't work like they had hoped. In the end, they probably ended up scattering all throughout the north. Now what does that mean for the legend that Bran the Builder built the wall with the help of the giants and the children? Well, it is a pretty well established fact that the wall was never completed until around the 155th Lord Commander. So this is why I said previously that maybe only portions were destroyed. It would take hundreds of years to fix and build on a wall of that magnitude with the technology they have. Why wouldn't the first men have used slave labor to finish off the wall? Slavery is a reoccurring theme throughout the world. If there were anyone left that had gotten stuck there when man tried to bring the wall down, they would have been captured and used to finish off the wall. Then, when it was nearly completed, they would have been thrown out to the north or killed. But the horn, you say? The horn is supposed to be somewhere north of the wall. If that's the case, the White Walkers have had 8,000 years to find it. And if they had it, they would have used it already. I mean, don't you think at some point in 8,000 years they would have? But Manson claimed he had found the horn and Melisandre burned it, but that's exactly what he did. He claimed to have found it. Jon even thought the gold bands were actually bronze, because they were. That horn was a fake. It was admitted to later. No one knows where it is, but there is a possibility that it is actually at the wall and has been the entire time. The original main castle at the wall was the Night Fort. It was huge. As the Night's Watch numbers dwindled, it was abandoned about 200 years prior to the current events because they simply could not keep up with the upkeep. A castle at Deepwood Lake was built, and that's where the Night's Watch went for some time. It was abandoned when numbers dwindled even further in favor of Castle Black. Both are in a serious state of disrepair. So wouldn't it make sense that if man does have the horn, they would want to keep it close by? The origins of the wall by the point they leave the Night Fort have been long forgotten. So what if the horn was left somewhere in the castle? Maybe left behind as a silly decoration, or even left behind because it is buried somewhere in a bunch of junk they didn't feel was important to take with them, because no one really knows the real significance of it. The White Walkers know this. It's why they've waited all this time to strike. They know the Night's Watch numbers have dwindled. I'm sure they know the real reason behind the wall has been forgotten by now, and that no one would suspect the horn is somewhere in the wall. They have probably witnessed the wildlings searching for it north of the wall, so they have no doubt that men have no idea where it is. Remember, these guys were in Westeros long before man ever was. They are ancient. They probably have a better grasp on their own history than man ever could. So the White Walkers make it to the wall, which we all know is going to happen. They get the horn and they bring the wall completely to the ground to take back their land. Not just portions of the wall, the entire thing. All of it. I mean, why would you have anything that big and that important in a story and not completely and utterly destroy it? They have been amassing an army for 8,000 years to take back what is theirs, which also happens to be the reason Daenerys wants to get back the Iron Throne, to take back what is hers, which also just so happens was never hers to begin with. I can hear Derpy saying it now. It still doesn't answer the question of how the first Night's King was the 13th commander of the Night's Watch, so now I'm going to try to answer that question. History also has a tendency to repeat itself. To show this point, as far as current events, Daenerys is trying to again retake Westeros like her ancestors had to, with dragons. We have the possibility of another Azor Ahai and the Long Night are all past events repeating themselves. And Jon even said that the wildlings had tried in the past over and over to get to the wall and failed every time. Every one of those times there was a king beyond the wall. Mance was a former Night's Watch who recognized that the wildlings were people too, and what the Night's Watch was doing to them wasn't right. He became king beyond the wall. So, if it is partially true that the Night's King was the 13th Lord Commander, it would have still been early enough in history to be fairly widely known what actually went down at the wall. Why couldn't he feel the same that every king beyond the wall felt, except for the White Walkers? If everyone had scattered north of the wall, he would have just been the first Night's King that meant anything, the one that brought them all back together. The legends of how the White Walkers came to be are probably just mostly nonsense that man made up to put a tragic spin on it. No one wants to think that the real reason was because they were the ones in the wrong. When you win, you can make history be whatever you want it to be. Why not make it look good? We even do that now. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns with this, please feel free to message me on Twitter or Facebook, and definitely in the comments down below. I would love to get your input.